and welcome to Alex Connect Sandbox MTG Study session 115. My name is Alex, and today we will continue to study Magic the Gathering in order to then, in a distant future, start to create our own tabletop games. And of course, we have to learn from the best. And Magic the Gathering is the best out there, so we kinda learning from it by studying it, which is going to be the first part of the session. For an hour we're going to study it, and the second hour we're actually going to play study it. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's just remember where we left. Where we left off. Actually, I'm not necessarily remember, like, that was a hectic week personally for me because there was a lot of stuff was launched in the previous week. Also, it was pretty hectic because I didn't stream for a couple of weeks before that, and getting back to streams now in a full time, it's kind of crazy. I mean, stream every day. It's kind of, I already tried stream every day, and the first my first try was pretty stressful, but right now it's actually not stressful because I'm kind of diversifying in terms of, like, for instance, like on Mondays I'm streaming Russian and I'm streaming creative. Tuesdays I'm stream MTG Study in English, and then we basically go and play study it in English. Then on basically Wednesdays and Thursdays I will go on YouTube and stream there completely different stuff, creative with WWE, thinking like talking about WWE, and I'm sculpting there. And basically on Fridays we getting back into Magic, but now playing it on, like, in Russian and streaming Russian. And then of course on weekends we are going into the actual creative part, and again working with art and etc. on Twitch, back on Twitch, but it's kind of in English again. And because there's a lot of diversity, I'm not necessarily getting tired, so I'm constantly switching between those things, and it's actually awesome. Because one of the reasons why I'm talking about right now at the beginning, which is not probably the right thing to do, but still, today's session is going to be kind of rather chill because I didn't have time to do that much. I mean, in terms of Magic, I mean, the only way that I'm interacting with Magic is basically during the streams. So for me, once I stop basically stream Magic, for me Magic is basically stops. This is one of the reasons why I decided to stream Magic, because this is the only way for me to spend time on the game that I love and at the same time make this time count. So because of this, we're going to stream Magic again. We streamed it for a year almost, and we will continue to stream it as long as we will be able to. So because again, and the only problem is in here is, again, we're not going to grow that fast. So because of this, our streams are going to be pretty kind of, I don't know, not super skillful. Maybe after we'll learn all sets, we will become better, who knows. So yeah, basically we'll continue today to study Arabian Nights, which, again, a good thing that we finished one set, now we started another one, and we are working with it. So, oh, by the way, quick thing, kind of want to change one thing. So, I want to choose the deck in deck hub that we're going to use today in MTG Arena, because today in MTG Arena we're kind of going to again play a chill session. We're not going to try to learn any type of mode, we're just going to play free play or quick play mode with our one color deck, kind of relax and yeah, and just experience Magic. So go with Arabian Nights. So first thing that we need to do, we need to find the card that we left with, or this is not going to be an easy one. Okay, good thing that I'm keeping track of those. So where are Arabian Nights? So the last card that we stopped with was Komjai by Witcher. I mean, by the way, how this word pronounced? Kind of interested in that. We're good to hear it. It's super important, I know. Quambaj. Apparently it's not a real word. There's no translation to it. Oh. So, okay, trying to find it. I truly don't remember even. Oh, here she is, the witches, basically. Okay, so yep, let's just continue studying. Again, it's going to be pretty hard to get back into the studying aspects because right now I'm kind of studying, like before that I didn't necessarily study full-time creative, but now I'm got back into studying full-time creative, and because of this my mind is kind of all there. So every time that I'm thinking about studying, I'm studying about studying art, studying composition, color, brushes, whatever, and but multiple kind of artistic theory. And for me right now in here, to get back into the magic and get back to these mechanics, it's not necessarily an easy task to do at this point. So I will dive in slowly, and in a couple of minutes I guess we will get there. To relink our neural pathways in order to basically, yeah, okay, so let's just do that. So tap these witches, and once you will do this, it basically will deal 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to any target of an opponent's choice. One of the reasons why I guess I decided not to skip it, but actually kind of stop on actually this card, besides the time that we didn't have that much time in the previous session to do that, it was kind of get closer to the finish, at least this part. Is the fact that we have a choice, or not we have a choice, but basically we performing some type of an in-game action, and we will be able to deal 1 damage to any target that, 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to any target, 1 opponent's choice. So yeah, basically we kind of will be able to deal 2 damage. One of this damage is going to, will be chosen by us, and the other damages will be chosen by the player that we are basically dealing damage to, or the 2 creatures of this character player. And because of this, it's kind of an interesting thing, because it kind of allows us to, I don't know, diversify the choice. So for instance, if we, for instance, if we play 4-player game, and one of the players are playing some certain card, and this card allows for this player to draw a card, the ones that plays the spell, text of this card might read that every other, then you choose a player, and that player decides who's going to draw additional card from all of these players. So it kind of diversifies the choices, basically. So you not just play a spell and get a certain effect from it, but now you give a freedom of choice to the other player, and now this other player basically have a choice to basically perform the same action, but towards their interests, in-game interests at that time. So, which kind of makes it pretty awesome. So I guess we're going to definitely put this one there. The only question is, should I put it in here, or right away put it in the draft, and where is the choice? Let's just right away put it in the choice box. Although I promised myself that I'm not going to go into the first draft yet. But since this is a choice between, not necessarily choice between. We have choice between and we have a choice based. This is not necessarily between, so we don't have choice between 2 or 3 elements, we just have a choice. So this is just a regular choice-based ability. So let's just put it in here, duplicate one of those, copy it, and let's just try to generalize it, because it's already kind of a first draft, and usually in first draft I have to be generalized. By the way, let's check the sound. Sound works! Cool. You or your creature, it all depends basically what exactly text reads, deals 1 damage. Okay, spell, let's just do spell, because you're never going to deal the actual damage to the player unless you're going to hit it with a brick, which is illegal and crude and not fun at all in reality. So spell or your creature deals 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to any target of an opponent's choice. I guess we're going to actually keep it that way. I don't believe that we need to generalize it that much, because if we're going to think about generalization of this ability, I don't believe that it needs to be generalized I mean, yes, the damage could be, like, the effect could be anything. The only thing that we could do is, instead of the damage, put an effect there. Let's just try to do that, though. Mewnie! Star butterfly! What? Cloudy! What? What are you doing, man? Are you crazy? No, right now I'm just basically watching Star Butterfly, a freaking awesome Disney cartoon, which I love. One of the best cartoons for the last couple of years after Gravity Falls, and I'm loving this cartoon so much that I'm just getting sometimes sick by it. So, spell of your creature deals what? A spell or your creature deals, not deals. Performs certain in-game action. By performs, again, we could think about anything. I mean, it could deal, it could draw a card, it could basically any type of action that we can perform in the game, or our creatures or our spells could perform in a game. We putting in here. This is kind of a generalization of it. To any target and 1 damage, or yeah, to any target, because again, this action could be kind of targeted to any target of our choice. Okay, we need to a little bit rephrase it. Not to any target, but spell or your creature performs a certain in-game action towards a target of your choice. A target, we already have target of your choice. Yeah, towards a target of your choice and certain in-game action of the opponent's choice. Just already here. And certain in-game action towards a target of opponent's choice. So this is pretty awesome generalization. I mean, it truly could be applied to anything. I mean, and as an example where we get there, we are basically put this one as a specification, which will help us to understand where we get this generalization, because sometimes by rereading it, the somewhat original kind of the explanation for the spell, we could come up with multiple different variations for it. So, but I believe this generalization basically covers everything type of thing. So yeah, cool. Continuing. Of course, right here we're tapping it in order to activate it. If it's a creature and if it's a spell, we're just playing it. So it's not necessarily matters in this particular instance. What was that? So, Cyclone. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a wind counter on Cyclone, then sacrifice Cyclone unless... Oh, come on, what do you want? Then sacrifice Cyclone unless you pay 1 tree. 1 tree? First. For each wind counter on it, if you pay Cyclone... If you pay, Cyclone deals damage equal to the number of wind counters on it to each creature and each player. This is actually pretty cool. So it basically helps us to, at the beginning of our turn, to this is basically the automatic ability that helps us to put counters at the beginning of our turn. We already covered that multiple times. Everything works with counters, so counters could be put on creatures or on our basically permanents multiple ways. The first way is by paying a certain price in order to put a counter, or at the beginning of the certain type of game phase, so at the end of our end step, or at the beginning of our end step, or basically at the beginning of our upkeep, or etc., or at the beginning of the opponent's upkeep, or whatever. So it doesn't matter. There's a lot of variables and possibilities in terms of when exactly it could be played, put on a permanent. But in most cases, what we need to think about in here is other permanents, I guess, could put counters on certain cards too. So for instance, we could put players that like put a creature in play, and this creature could put a counter, like add additional counter. We have cards that basically allow us to multiply counters that already exist and double them, or triple them, or whatever. So most of the cases we kind of already covered it, and once we will try to make things a little bit much simpler, and we'll try to create categories. Then we're of course going to separate all these categories, and we will actually add this type of category that will allow us to think about this type of behavior, like when exactly we will be able to put counters and what type of actions could help us to put counters on certain cards. And why is the reason to put counters? Because right here the reason to put counters on this card is for each of that counter, if we will pay a price for each win counter that on this card. For instance, if it has 5 counters, we need to pay 5, and if we will do, it will deal damage equal to the number of these counters to each creature and each player, which is kind of a crazy, because again it kind of deals massive damage to everyone and to everything around it, which is pretty awesome. Which it's actually a pretty awesome card. Although I don't like cards that basically board wipe everything. I mean, including my cards and creatures and like self-harming cards, I don't like them. Like, it's not in my personality. So because of this, it's just basically kind of seems weird. But all in all, the ability is pretty cool. But I don't believe that we need to put it in our intellectual map. No, it's kind of combines multiple things that we already covered. So again, dealing damage equal to the number of counters. The fact that we need to, in order for this to happen, we need to pay a certain price in order to do it, and to keep it in play. And then basically, if we will pay this price, then it basically kind of deals something, like performs some certain in-game action. So it's basically kind of a double, I don't know, there's a lot of multiple combinations in here. So putting a counter on a card during the upkeep, and second one, then you have to pay a certain price in order to keep it in play, which is third one. Fourth one is if you pay, you deal damage to a number of win counters to each creature and each player. So again, there's kind of 4 combinations in here, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, but most of these separate combinations we already covered. The rest is just kind of imagination. You put these pieces together and create something like this cool spell. Okay, flying creature, artifact creature, spirit, no thanks. We already covered everything that works with flying. And okay, this one can attack unless defending player controls an island. Again, kind of seems like an island walk, or the opposite of it. So can't attack unless there's a certain condition. Conditions are met. If these conditions are met, it could attack. If not, it can. And when you control no island, sacrifice it. Even worse. So just kind of a double condition. One that will allow you to attack, and one that basically make this creature die. Not going to cover, so hopefully we're going to go faster, because again we have a lot of sets to kind of cover, and so far we, like in the previous set, we studied for a long time, for probably a couple of months. Sorry about that. That was quite a sneeze. Ugh. So desert. Oh no, my voice has died for some reason after this sneeze. Desert deals 1 damage. I actually slept today for a couple of hours, so I'm pretty kind of... yesterday was unplanned big stream in creative. We kind of streamed at least instead of 2 hours for almost 5.5 hours. It was super intense. I mean, it was awesome. I loved it, but again, it was unplanned, and because of that, I didn't sleep that much, and kind of a little bit tired. So My voice is not going to be that strong today. So Desert deals 1 damage to a target attacking creature. Activate this ability only during the end of combat step. Desert deals 1 to attacking creature. So basically it deals damage. This is one thing. Second one, it's to a certain target, and it basically specified target, which is attacking creature. And then activate this ability only during the end of the combat, which is basically specified the exact time that creates a restriction in terms of the time when we actually able to activate this ability. So we're not able to tap it any times that we want, only during the end of combat step, which is weird. Deals 1 damage target to that. Oh, so creature first attacking, and then after it attacked already at the end of the combat stage, we could deal 1 damage to one of those attacking creatures, and actually even our creatures too, which is interesting. This card would be awesome in a dinosaur deck, by the way, that works with Enrage. It's actually pretty cool. But still, and this is a freaking land. Come on, seriously? This is awesome land. No wonder it's a mythic. It's freaking sick. Come on! I wanna see the land, how it looks basically in the new art. Okay, it's pretty cool. Not necessarily how dunes are looking, but the clouds are pretty cool. And there's some kind of a Grand Canyon thing in here. Whatever. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to desert nomads by deserts. Oh yeah, that's why. So because these deserts are kinda have the possibility to deal damage, and we have a counter for them. We're not going to cover this because again we already have prevent any type of damage that we possibly could think of. Right here it's kind of a specification what exactly a card type against what type of card you basically are protecting, like preventing the damage from. And this specification not necessarily important in general for us, because we're already kind of it's implied, just a specification from what type of card we're going to prevent the damage. But in this particular instance, this is cool because it kind of the thing that we talked about before. So every card that you create in your game, it has to have some type of an answer to it. So if you will put a card in a game that basically like a desert that will deal 1 damage to attacking creature or whatever, or basically that could possibly deal damage, then you definitely want to have to include something that will counter that. So every card has to have a counter and any type of destroyer, because once you will create a card that doesn't have those, you're losing the game. Once this card enters the battlefield, you can't do anything. The only thing that you have thing that you have it's time that is basically running out the more this card stays in the game. But having those type of cards basically allows us to kind of create this contrast, which is I believe cool. Okay, continue. Destroy target permanent, whatever, just destroy target permanent. Sacrifice a creature, you gain life equal to the sacrifice creature toughness. No thanks, already covered multiple times. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. I mean, this is pretty regular, but because I started to talk about like the least with the latest, I kind of had the idea to destroy the creature that dealt damage the last. It would be a pretty interesting, like kind of a time-oriented ability that allows you to deal damage to the creatures that were attacked the last, or attacked in the previous turn, or something like this. So the time-oriented thing. But I guess once we will go into the time shift set, we will definitely deal with the time-related abilities a lot. And because of this, I guess we're not going to cover any time abilities in here. It can't be regenerated if 2 or more creatures are tied for least power. You choose one of them. It's kind of a choice-based oriented, but not necessarily choice-based, but choice between based oriented. So basically, it kind of combines multiple things. So at the beginning of your upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. So okay, we basically choosing the least creature with least power, and then it getting destroyed. Then of course it can be regenerated, so it kind of just saves the thing against regeneration. If 2 or more creatures are tied for least power, you choose one of them. So basically you have a choice if both creatures have the same power. Okay, this is interesting though. Then there are no creatures on the battlefield. When there are no creatures on the battlefield, sacrifice this honey. Drop of honey. So, in terms of this, it's just a condition when this card could be sacrificed. I don't believe that this is important for us. And it's not necessarily works separately. It kind of works in here because it constantly triggers it. And once there's no creatures, the only way to remove this card from the game is to basically not put any creatures in game, wait until this card basically will destroy all creatures, and then it's going to be sacrificed and you could put creatures back again in play. So this is the kind of card that works together with all these things. And I don't believe that we need to put it in our intellectual lab though, because in most cases, again, beginning of the turn one thing, or upkeep one thing, destroy the target creature with the least power. I don't believe that we covered it though. Let's just try to find destroy. Yeah, let's just try to find something but destroy and just add this one as a specification, because I don't believe that we need to create a separate ability for it, but there's a lot of destroying things here. And putting it in turn. Yeah, there's a lot of destroying. If defending the player possibly contains the game quality, specific game could be performed against the other player. Yeah, so right here, destroy target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature. It could apply here. No, it works with the name. We need to work with the least power, so it's not going to work. We need to find different type of destroying. No. Yeah, here it is. Destroy exile target creature. Let's just put a specification on how exactly we could destroy it. So we actually have a lot of like the destroy things. We have destroy exile target attacking creature, blocking creature, target attacking or blocking creature, destroy exile target tapped creature. So it's kind of weird. So apparently we need to add another destroy. Destroy exile target, or not the target but creature, with the least power or toughness. Toughness. Toothness, seriously? Toothness. Completely forget how it. Least power. Creature with the least power of toughness, or with the biggest power of toughness. So basically based on the characteristics of the card. Which means that this card could be used even to creatures that have the lowest mana cost, the biggest mana cost, and etc. So it basically applies to any type of thing that's based on a card characteristic, even to a amount of lines in the flavor text, I believe. At least we're going to think about that way. Continuing, so the rest is kind of not important. If 2 or more creatures are tied, this is kind of a specification what's going to happen if they're tied. I guess we're actually going to put it in here because it's kind of important. If 2 or more creatures are tied for this characteristic, You choose one of them because you played this card. So this is actually super important specification. Because again, we have to kind of balance this thing. We could actually apply the random element to it too. So it's not necessarily we choosing him. We could like throw a dice and combine this with the dice throwing and with the random effects. So actually has a lot of possibilities in here. Continue. So untap target attacking creature you control, prevent all combo damage that would be dealt and dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. Okay, thinking. Untap target attacking creature you control. Okay, it just allows you to basically untap target creature, target attacking creature that you're controlling by paying a certain price and tapping. Then you prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. In case it's before the end of the... It's weird. I guess it's just combination of multiple abilities with addition of preventing all combat damage. The only reason why I don't understand why would we need to do that. I mean, okay, we're attacking with creature. Then if opponent is blocking this creature, we might kind of rewind back. The only thing that this card makes us do is correct our mistakes if we did one. Or if opponent puts something with flash in the game and this flash was unpredictable, and now we need to make sure that this creature is not going to attack. The only question is, like, before this will happen, I completely understand like how it's going to work, but what if we're going to do that after creature are already going to die? Oh no, when we are tapping, it not necessarily removes it from attack. Yeah, that's why. I completely forgot that when we are attacking, it's not, and card is basically getting untapped, it's not going to be removed from the attack. It will continue to attack, and because of this, we need to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to it. Because again, if we're not going to do that, this card is just going to die. And why would we need it untapped unless it's a big one and like a defender that we might use in the next turn. So yeah, that's why. Yeah, considering this factor, nothing special about this ability. It's pretty cool, but again, it just untaps target creature in exact time of need when we need it for a certain price, and prevents all damage in order to kind of saves it, which is pretty cool, but still, just combination. Regenerate target elephant is interesting. Specified regenerate land that allows to choose a specific target to regenerate, which is interesting. Pretty strong lands, by the way, in this set. Come on. When this one deals damage, you gain that much life. We already covered something similar. At the beginning of your end step, this if raiders didn't attack this turn, they deal 2 damage to you unless it came under your control this turn. Okay, this is pretty interesting. So the only thing that is interesting isn't here, unless it came under your control this turn. So basically, at the beginning of your end step, if they didn't attack this turn, they deal 2 damage. So it kind of forces you to attack with them constantly, and the only where it's not going to work, it's unless they entered the battlefield this turn, which is completely understandable because we need to protect ourselves from not being able to attack, and since this card once enters the battlefield is going to have Summoning Sickness, it's completely understandable explanation for it. So I guess there's nothing special about it. I mean, again, it just kind of forces us to attack with this card. Kind of a little bit similar to this creature attack of each turn of Fable, but right here, if we're not going to attack with this creature, we have to kind of suffer some type of price, or we have to pay a certain price, and if we don't want to pay this price, we have to attack with it. which I have mixed feelings about in terms of if we need to put it in intellectual map or not, because truly it seems like there's nothing special about it, but at the same time it could be potentially used somewhere. And to think, because I doubt that we're going to restudy it from the ground up. I mean, this is probably the first and the last time that we're going to read this text. I mean, in this set, and deal with this card, unless it's going to be reprinted in the future, of course. But still, and because of this, these decisions are pretty hard. So because again, every card for me, it's a potential to learn things, and I kind of have some type of a sneaky suspicion that I might learn something from it. And because of this, since I have a gut feeling, I believe I'm going to use it. We're going to listen our gut feeling, and we're going to put it in here. At the beginning of your end step, if this creature didn't attack this turn, it deals 2 damage to its owner. Let's just put it this way. Unless it came under your unless it entered the battlefield this turn, which again, because of the summoning sequence. Sickness. Okay. So, yep, and this is kind of it. Man, it's actually kind of cool. Definitely pretty awesome stuff. I mean, we generalize it that it now applies to every kind of type of creature, not only that you can control, but the ones that opponent controls, which is pretty cool. And it not necessarily could deal just 2 damage to you. I guess it makes you suffer. It makes you suffer. Because we might create a game that's not necessarily going to deal with damage, and we need to put something that basically, it's not necessarily the same as to pay a price, because life, it's kind of a price in this particular instance, but it's not necessarily we have a choice in order to pay this price or not. We just being forced by the fact that this card will make us suffer if we're not going to attack. And because of this, it kind of creates this interesting kind of potential in it. Continuing. At the beginning of your upkeep, target non-wall creature an opponent controls gain forced walk until your next upkeep. It can be blocked as long as defending player controls a forest. Again, we already covered everything that works with this specified targeting. We already covered everything that works with any type of walks. Again, we could create any type of walking. Forest walk, word walk, like with a specific word in here. If this word is mentioned in the card's text anywhere, it can be blocked as long as the defending player controls the card with this name. So it's kind of the way that we could think about it, not like using the forest walk necessarily, but name walk or the word walk. Skipping. Eye for an eye, something similar by the way. Instant. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, instead that source deals that much damage to you, and eye for an eye deals that much damage to that source controller. Okay, this is interesting. The next time the source of our choice would deal damage to us this turn. Instead, that source deals that much damage to you. This is pretty cool card. I mean, I'm not necessarily able to process it right now, but I definitely see potential in it. So because of this, let's just put it in here. So because it's kind of complex, because it all depends on the turn structure, and depends on the turn structure, it could work a little bit differently. And it also kind of, the only thing about this card, that eye for an eye, it's basically a card that triggers every time that certain action will be performed. And this certain action is any time that the source of your choice would deal damage. So we could replace the first part and replace eye for an eye, of course, with a different card, and then make sure that every time that something will happen, this card basically will trigger a certain ability and kind of not necessarily redirects this action towards our opponent, but does something kind of both ways. Deals damage to us and then deals damage to the opponent. So something like this. And because of this, this card definitely has this type of potential, and I definitely want to keep it in here. And we're going to keep it in an actual kind of state. The other thing that we're going to change, and it's the name of the card. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn. So because again, it works with the choice, so you have to choose this source. Instead, that source deals that much damage to you. So apparently you putting this card in a game, and then once you're going to make a choice, what source exactly? I don't believe that you're constantly remaking the choices right from the beginning each time, because it's an instant. So yeah, it's an instant. So basically just play it, and it works only once. So it's pretty cool. It works especially against like direct spells, big direct spells, or just big creatures that are attacking you with trample especially, and it kind of helps you to redirect this damage, but not necessarily 100% redirected. So instead, the source deals that much damage to you, and eye for an eye. So damage will still be dealt, but now we multiplying it, copying it, and redirecting it towards an opponent. Pretty cool. Again, definitely has potential. And this instant spell, we definitely need to cover it. This card, in this particular instance, this is an instant spell. Does that much damage to that source controller. Good. Continue. Enchant creature, target a creature. Again, this is just a regular enchantment. Enchant creature has an island walk. Just gives the creature an additional kind of ability of walking amongst islands. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. It just gives it flying. Again, flying. Flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, if a player has more life than each other player, the player with the most life gains control of this card. This is pretty interesting. So the one player that has the most life will basically gain control of this card. We had something similar, but we definitely didn't have like necessarily exactly this. I'll just put it in here. At the beginning of your upkeep, if player has more life than each other player, the player with the most life gains control of this card. Kind of cool. It's control based, and we might put it right away into our control based category, but no, not this one. It's kind of a little bit more general than dealing with the choices. Gain turquoise. So basically, giant gets free as long as it's untapped. It's a condition based, I mean, condition of the card, or position in the card. So this card has to be in a certain position physically in order for this ability to be applied on this card. And we already covered it. So in this particular instance, if it's untapped, it has this. If not, it doesn't. So you better keep it untapped. Put a vigilance on it. It would be pretty sick. Okay, this is pretty horrible art. I mean, oh, it's scary, and at the same time, it's kind of weird. Most of the arts in the old days is pretty bad. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe because at that time there was not that many skillful digital artists, and most of these things are drawn, I guess, in digital. And then they decided, okay, we need to start hiring the actual artists and traditional artists because digital artists are not up to the task yet. Or maybe it was just all about money at that time. They didn't have that money, and because of this, they just hired, or these arts were done maybe for free. I don't know. Who knows? Because this is the one reason why I would explain, like, why there's so much bad art in here. And not necessarily bad. Like, I don't believe that there's a bad art. There's just a experienced art and art with that has lots of experience. And I guess we definitely, if we're going to compare the art of the old days, the first sets, and art of these days, of course, there's the crazy gap. And if you're going to compare them, this art looks kind of bad. But still, it kind of works still. Nowadays, you're definitely not going to create the game with that type of a bad art, because unfortunately, in our era, it actually considers a bad art. Unfortunately, especially this. No disrespect to the artist. I believe they're already grown leaps and bounds. Every artist has a stage. So, okay, covering. We're actually kind of almost closer to the finish. So let's just go with the beast with this particular part of the session. As long as Guardian Beast is untapped, non-creature artifacts you control can be enchanted. They have indestructible, and other players can gain control of them. What? This is crazy. This effect doesn't remove auras already attached to those artifacts. Okay, this is a lot. I mean, it has multiple things, and I guess this is the last thing that we're going to kind of think about. We're going to get back to it. For now, let's just figure out which card is going to be the actual last one for today. Whenever Hearthstone attacks, it deals 3 damage to you unless you pay 2 again. You have to pay a certain price. Target creature can't regenerate this turn. Can be regenerated. This one deals 1 damage to each creature with flying in each player. Any player may activate this ability. Okay, this is something that I know Magic has. Because of this, we're going to put in here. So let's just put it in this way. Card has ability. Any player may activate this ability. Yep, that's it. As simple as that. So this one doesn't untap during your upkeep. Yep, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 3 if you do untap it. Can't attack unless defending player controls an island. And when you control an island, sacrifice this one. Nope. Again, just kind of combination of separate abilities that we already covered. Target creature with flying has base power 0 until end of turn. Okay, this is interesting. Kind of nullifies the target creature has base power 0 until the end of turn, which of course is going to. Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. We could work the same with the toughness, but it's not going to work for the toughness because it's just going to kill creature unless it's indestructible. So Discard the last card you drew this turn, draw a card. Okay, this is interesting. Kind of specification, what type of card you are actually going to... Yeah, this is the last card that we're going to stop with. We're going to think about it in the next session. Where to put it exactly. Because we might just add this one as a specification for drawing a card. Or for discarding a card. Or we will create a separate ability for it. We'll think about that. And let's just get back to this one, and this is the last card for this part of the session, and then we're going to switch after a quick 5-minute break or so to Magic Arena. As long as Guardian Beast is untapped, so as long as it's untapped, not attacking, this is a creature, non-creature artifacts you control can be enchanted, so creatures can't enchant those. Or the opponent can't enchant those with the harming enchantments, and you can't put any enchantments on your artifact creatures. Okay, they have indestructible, which is interesting, and other players can gain control of them. So basically, it prohibits. Wouldn't it be better to just use a hexproof instead of other players can gain control of them? Because hexproof basically solves all these problems. They can be enchanted, and the other players can gain control of them. The fact that they add an indestructibility to this card to make it indestructible, kind of, okay, it's fine. But again, you couldn't either target it, unless it's a massive destroyer that could wipe every board. Every creature card on the board. This effect doesn't remove auras already attached to those artifacts. Again, there's just a lot of like small elements that I don't believe that we need to like put in an actual map, because again, as long as it's untapped, it's again just a condition that needs to be set in order for this ability to basically work. Then there's just a specification how it actually works. Non-creature artifacts you control can't be enchanted, they have indestructible, and other players can gain control of them. So basically you will add 3 additional things to them. Indestructibility we already covered. The fact that the players can gain control of a certain card, it basically works similar to a hexproof, so I guess we're not going to cover it, so it's just kind of, I don't know, it's weird. Although, I don't know. No, let's just put it separately. Non-creature artifacts you control can be enchanted. Creatures you control can be enchanted, and other players can gain control of your creatures. So we're going to just add 2 separate kind of things, because we might use them separately. I know that yes, hexproof in most cases and shroud kind of in combination will solve both of these problems. You can't target your own creatures because Shroud doesn't allow you to do that, and hexproof doesn't allow opponent spells to target your creature, but this works with a specific type of action and restricts this, like, for this action to be performed. Because of this, I guess we need to cover it. We're going to skip and predict indestructibility, it's not important. And let's just add creatures you control can be enchanted. And as a specification, we're going to add that the enchantments that are already on these creatures will stay attached. This is the last thing for today. And players can gain control of your creatures. So again, players still can target your creatures. They could kill them, they could basically remove them from the game, return back to your hand, but they can't gain control of them. So we might use this. Players can gain control of your creatures. It's interesting. yeah, and as we covered, the last card is going to be this one, and on that note, we're going to finish for today's part of the session and switch to Magic Arena. So, yeah, we kind of studied like decent amount of cards. I know every type of study, it doesn't matter how many cards we're going to study, we're going to learn something, because again, as I said at the beginning of the session, this is the only time that I have to spend time on Magic, and since this is the only time that I have, I'm going to use it the way that I want to use it. So, and of course this time needs to be used like as efficiently as possible in terms of studying. Of course, we need to still think about the fact that these are the streams, and if we're going to study and some people will come and we basically will start to basically converse and chat, it's completely fine. This is the actual kind of reason for the streams in most cases. But if there's not going to be anyone, we're going to try to efficiently go through the most cards possible, and at the same time try not to skip things in order to haste things. Because again, there's nowhere to rush. I am still not ready to create my own tabletop games, because again, as I said before I will be ready to create my own tabletop games, I need to become a decent artist at least. And before that will happen, I don't know how many years will basically like go into pass. So because of this, this one doesn't need to be hasted. And even if I will become a decent artist faster and we're not going to finish studying Magic, we still have a reason to get back at Magic and continue to learn it, which is pretty cool. Because again, now when we go into, for instance, if we're going to start to create games much faster than was anticipated before we will end studying all Magic sets, then we will go into study specific cards with the specific abilities in order to get inspired to create our own stuff. But in most cases, most of the games that I already kind of started to develop, they already have certain structure, and we probably not going to put any of this knowledge that we applied or that we learned so far into those games in terms of the development. The only thing that we're going to do, how we're going to use this information, we're going to use this information to make this game better, a little bit more balanced, efficient, and work properly. And basically this is one of the reasons why we're studying it. So it seems like every ability that I'm studying kind of I'm separating it, and it seems like I'm going to use it in an actual way, but in reality it's not going to be the case. We're just going to put this information on our brain in order for it, when we need it, use it like an inspiration or something like this. And then it basically and once we will start to create our own games, after we will finish our existing ones, we have a couple of in development, probably about 2 or 3 games in development. A couple of those are simple, one of them is pretty complex, so they all have a completely different and unique kind of I wouldn't necessarily say settings, they don't have settings yet, but they have a different type of kind of targeting audience for them, I believe. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one. So yeah, again, we're not going to rush this process. If it's going to be long process, it's not that big of a deal. It's still going to give us information that we would need. So on that note, we're going to basically switch to the next session. So for those who are not going to join us in Magic Arena, thank you for watching, thank you for being here. Have a nice day or night, and we're going to see you in the next part or the next session. If you will continue with us, then we're going to see you in a couple of minutes in Magic Arena. I'm going to switch titles and basically relaunch the different program for streaming, because OBS doesn't work properly in streaming Magic Arena for me personally, because I have super unique graphic card that basically doesn't work with it. Why would you need this information? I don't know, but still, on that note, Tony says goodbye and kind of what? We're going to see you in a couple of minutes.